The story you're about to hear isn't just about an orca attack. It's about the slow, agonizing death of a dream. A dream sold to millions under the shimmering surface of a carefully constructed lie. And at the heart of that lie was a young woman named Evelyn Hope, and her extraordinary bond with a killer whale named Nyros. Evelyn wasn't just another SeaWorld trainer. She was different. She didn't see Nyros as a performing animal, a cog in a multi-billion-dollar machine. She saw him ... as a soul, an intelligent, complex being trapped in an unnatural existence. And somehow, impossibly, Nyros saw that in her too. Their connection was almost immediate, a spark of understanding that defied logic. While other trainers relied on whistles and rewards, Evelyn used empathy. She spent hours simply observing Nyros, learning his moods, his subtle shifts. In behavior, she spoke to him not in commands, but in soothing tones, sharing stories, secrets, hoping, perhaps, that some part of her reached him across the species barrier, and it seemed to work. Nyros, a veteran performer known for his unpredictable temperament, began to respond to Evelyn in ways he never had to anyone else. He'd seek her out at the edge of the tank, his massive head tilted as if listening intently. Their training sessions became fluid, almost intuitive, a dance of mutual respect and trust. Evelyn's star rose rapidly. She became the face of sea conservation message, the poster child for the harmonious relationship between humans and orcas. Promotional videos showcased her and Nyros in seemingly effortless performances, their bond presented as a testament to the park's commitment to animal welfare. Tourists flocked to see them, captivated by the spectacle of a woman seemingly whispering to a killer whale. But behind the dazzling smiles and synchronized swims, a darker truth was brewing. Evelyn, with her innate sensitivity, started to notice changes in Nyros, subtle at first. A momentary hesitation during a routine, a flicker of agitation in his usually calm eyes. But the signs were there if you knew where to look. He'd become increasingly withdrawn, spending more time submerged in the depths of the tank. His once playful interactions with Evelyn became less frequent, replaced by a disconcerting stillness. He'd sometimes ignore her signals altogether, swimming in tight, repetitive circles, a clear indication of stress. Evelyn documented these changes meticulously, logging every deviation from Nyros's normal behavior in her reports. She voiced her concerns to her superiors, suggesting modifications to their routine, increased enrichment, perhaps even a break from performances. But her warnings were met with polite indifference, dismissed as the overzealousness of a young trainer. SeaWorld had a carefully crafted image to maintain, an image of happy, healthy orcas thriving in their care. A stressed or agitated animal didn't fit that narrative. The upcoming summer season was crucial, with record ticket sales projected. There was simply no room for anything that might disrupt the flow of revenue. And so, Evelyn's concerns were swept under the rug. Her reports buried in the ever-growing pile of paperwork that documented the park's internal operations. She was told to focus on the positives, to emphasize the bond she shared with Nyros, to reassure the public that everything was fine. But Evelyn knew better. She could feel the tension in the water, the unspoken anxieties that permeated the park's atmosphere. She heard the whispers among the other trainers, the hushed conversations about the shift, the moment when the orca's behavior started to change, when the demands of captivity began to take their toll. She saw the older whales, their bodies scarred with bite marks from years of confined aggression, their eyes filled with a profound weariness. She saw the younger ones, their spirits broken by endless training sessions and the constant pressure to perform. And she knew, with a growing sense of dread, that Neros was heading down the same path. The problem wasn't just age, or boredom, or even the physical limitations of the tanks. It was the fundamental disconnect between the Orca's natural instincts and the artificial environment they were forced to inhabit. These were animals designed to roam the vast oceans, to hunt in pods, to communicate over vast distances, confined to concrete enclosures, deprived of their families and their freedom. They were slowly, inevitably, losing their minds. SeaWorld, of course, denied any suggestion of systemic issues. They pointed to their state-of-the-art facilities, their expert veterinary staff, their commitment to conservation. They claimed that their orcas were thriving, that they were living longer, healthier lives than their counterparts in the wild. But Evelyn saw the truth. She saw the cracks in the facade, the hidden costs of captivity, the sacrifices made in the name of entertainment. And she knew, with a chilling certainty, that something terrible was about to happen. The question wasn't if, but when and who would pay the price. She found herself increasingly isolated, caught between her loyalty to SeaWorld and her growing concern for Neros. She struggled to reconcile the image she presented to the public with the reality she witnessed behind the scenes. She felt like she was living a double life, trapped in a drowning illusion where everything looked perfect on the surface, but where darkness lurked beneath. The bond with Neros, once a source of joy and inspiration, had become a heavy burden. She felt responsible for him, for his well-being, for his very existence. But she also felt powerless, trapped in a system that valued profit over compassion, that prioritized image over truth. And as the summer showcase approached, as the pressure mounted and the warning signs intensified, Evelyn knew that she was running out of time. The ocean was holding its breath, waiting for the moment when the truth would finally break free. And when it did, the consequences would be devastating. Not just for her, but for everyone involved. Because the ocean never forgets. And it always claims what is rightfully its. Evelyn Hope wasn't just a trainer. She was a canary in a coal mine filled with salt water and secrets. The deeper her connection with Neros grew, the more acutely she perceived the cracks in SeaWorld's carefully constructed facade. She saw the barely concealed anxieties of the other trainers, the way they flinched when Neros' tail slapped too close to the pool edge, the hushed whispers in the break room about the shift, that point where the orcas seemed to lose their spark, their willingness to perform. But Evelyn was also witnessing something far more specific, far more concerning, a palpable deterioration in Neros himself. The subtle changes began insidiously, a flicker of defiance in his eye during training sessions, a hesitation to respond to familiar cues, a growing disinterest in tactile interaction. He was once so eager for scratches along his rostrum, the bond so crucial to their partnership, and now he would turn away, almost disgusted. These weren't just bad days. This was a pattern, a downward spiral she felt acutely. He was exhibiting what she recognized, both from her own observations and from fragmented bits of veterinary jargon she'd gleaned, as classic signs of stress and depression: decreased appetite, erratic sleep patterns, increased aggression, even in subtle forms like prolonged stares and jaw-popping. Evelyn began documenting everything meticulously, every missed cue, every moment of agitation, every scratch or abrasion she found on his skin a consequence. She suspected of increased pacing and rubbing against the concrete walls. She poured her concerns into detailed reports, filled with precise observations and carefully worded recommendations. More enrichment, changes to the training schedule, increased social interaction with other orcas, though logistically difficult, given Narus's history and perceived incompatibility with the other pod members. But her reports vanished into the bureaucratic abyss, only to resurface with dismissive responses from management. Nyros is a seasoned performer. Minor fluctuations are to be expected. Focus on positive reinforcement and maintain the existing routine. Don't overreact to isolated incidents. One particularly galling memo suggested she simply reevaluate her training techniques, as if she were the problem. The frustrating thing was, she knew these dismissals weren't simply negligence, they were deliberate. SeaWorld's priorities were crystal clear: maintain the illusion, keep the crowds coming, and protect the bottom line. Animal welfare and even trainer safety were secondary considerations. Evelyn's attempts to raise concerns were met with subtle, insidious pressure. She was subtly reminded of the importance of maintaining a positive image. She noticed that she was gradually excluded from certain meetings and discussions. Her requests for additional support were quietly denied. She felt increasingly isolated, trapped between her genuine concern for Nyros and the crushing weight of corporate expectation. This wasn't just about Nyros. Evelyn was now privy to information regarding other orcas under their care as well. She recalled an instance where another trainer expressed trepidation about performing a specific trick because a whale had acted agitated the previous day. This trainer was promptly replaced by a more compliant colleague, and the more she looked, the more she realized this had been going on for decades. SeaWorld, in its pursuit of profit, had systematically suppressed information and minimized the risks of keeping these enormous, intelligent creatures confined in artificial environments. Whispers of previous incidents, injuries, and even deaths were carefully scrubbed from the official narrative. One particular rumor that circulated spoke of a former trainer who had suffered a serious injury during a late-night training session. This trainer had subsequently been paid a substantial sum of money to sign a non-disclosure agreement, effectively silencing them. The details were vague, shrouded in secrecy. But the message was clear: silence was rewarded, dissent was punished. Evelyn began to understand that she wasn't just battling indifference, she was fighting against a deeply ingrained culture of denial, an obfuscation, a culture that prioritized profit and public perception above all else. A culture that was willing to sacrifice the well-being of its animals, and even the safety of its trainers, to maintain the illusion of harmony and wonder. This realization filled her with a growing sense of dread. She knew that something catastrophic was brewing. She could feel it in the air, in the way Nyros looked at her, in the cold, dismissive glares she received from management. But she was trapped. She couldn't quit. She couldn't abandon Nyros. And she couldn't shake the feeling that if she spoke out too loudly, she would become just another inconvenient truth swept under the rug. But the warnings became impossible to ignore. One incident in particular stands out. During a rehearsal, Nyros had been exhibiting increased signs of agitation. He was refusing to perform the routine breach, swimming in tight circles and emitting loud guttural vocalizations. In a moment of desperation, Evelyn decided to try a different approach. Instead of pushing him to perform the trick, she simply floated on the surface of the water, speaking to him in a soft, soothing voice. "It's okay, Nyros," she whispered. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Just relax." For a moment, it seemed to work. Nyros calmed slightly, circling her more slowly. But then, without warning, he turned, accelerated rapidly, and slammed into the underwater gate with such force that the entire stadium seemed to shudder. Evelyn was stunned, both by the violence of the act and by the chilling realization that Naros's rage wasn't random, it was directed. He wasn't just acting out. He was protesting his captivity. He was expressing his frustration, his despair, his longing for the open ocean. She didn't report that incident. She knew it would be dismissed, minimized, or even twisted against her. But the weight of that secret, the weight of knowing that Naros was teetering on the edge, began to crush her. She was drowning in the very illusion SeaWorld had created. The air crackled with a strange electricity in the days leading up to the final performance. It wasn't just the usual pre-show jitters. It was something darker, heavier. Evelyn felt it in her bones, a cold dread that settled deep within her. She tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was just tired, overworked. But the feeling persisted, a nagging whisper that something terrible was about to happen. Sleep offered little respite. Nightmares plagued her, swirling black water, Naros's eyes turning cold and distant, echoing screams swallowed by the vastness of the ocean. She'd wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding, the scent of salt water clinging to her skin like a phantom. During training sessions, she pushed herself harder, desperately trying to reconnect with Naros, to reignite the spark that had once existed. Between them, she ran through the routines with meticulous precision, showering him with praise and affection. But his responses were muted, mechanical. He followed her commands, but without the enthusiasm, the playful energy that had defined their early days. He was a ghost of his former self, a shadow moving through the water. Evelyn saw the change in him, the simmering rage beneath the surface. She knew, deep down, that something was terribly wrong. But she was trapped, caught between her love for Naros and the suffocating pressure from SeaWorld. The show had to go on. Millions of dollars were at stake. Her career hung in the balance. The morning of the performance dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within her. As she stood backstage, preparing for the show, she could hear the roar of the crowd, the thumping music, the announcer's booming voice. It all felt surreal, like she was living in a bizarre, twisted dream. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, barely recognizing the pale, haunted face staring back at her. Doubts swirled in her mind, questions she couldn't answer. Was she doing the right thing? Was she betraying Naros by forcing him to perform? Could she stop what was about to happen? But it was too late. The show was about to begin as she walked out onto the platform. The crowd erupted in applause. She forced a smile, waving to the audience, trying to project an image of confidence and control. But inside, she was crumbling, torn apart by guilt and fear. Naros was already in the water, waiting for her. As she looked into his eyes, she saw a flicker of something she couldn't quite decipher, a plea, a warning, a desperate cry for help. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. This was it. There was no turning back. The music started, the lights flashed, and the routine began. Evelyn moved through the water with practiced ease, guiding Naros through the familiar maneuvers. For a moment, everything seemed to be going according to plan. But then, something shifted. During a complex underwater sequence, Naros hesitated. He stopped following her cues, his body tensing, his eyes hardening. Evelyn felt a surge of panic. This wasn't part of the routine. Something was terribly wrong. She tried to regain control, issuing commands, offering gentle reassurance. But Nyros was unresponsive, locked in his own world, consumed by a rage that had been building for years. And then he snapped. With a terrifying roar, he lunged at her, his massive body crashing against hers with brutal force. The water exploded around them as the crowd gasped in horror. Evelyn was thrown against the side of the tank. Disoriented and gasping for air, Nyros attacked again, his powerful jaws clamping down on her arm, his teeth tearing through flesh and bone. Pain seared through her body as she struggled to break free, but it was no use. Nyros was too strong, too powerful. He dragged her down into the depths of the tank, a prisoner in his watery domain. Chaos erupted in the arena. Screams filled the air as trainers rushed to the edge of the tank, desperately trying to intervene. Emergency alarms blared, adding to the cacophony of terror. But it was all too late. Nyros was in control now, driven by a primal rage that had been suppressed for too long. He thrashed and rolled, tossing Evelyn's body around like a rag doll. Blood filled the water, staining it a sickening crimson. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the unthinkable unfolded before their eyes. The illusion of trust, the fantasy of harmony, shattered into a million pieces. The ocean had finally revealed its dark secrets, the true cost of captivity. It took what felt like an eternity for the rescue team to reach Evelyn. When they finally pulled her from the water, she was lifeless, broken, her body a mangled mess. The park was immediately shut down. Guests were ushered out, their faces pale with shock and disbelief. The media descended upon SeaWorld, hungry for answers. SeaWorld's PR machine went into overdrive, desperately trying to contain the damage. They issued carefully worded statements, expressing their condolences, promising a thorough investigation. But no amount of spin could hide the truth. The ocean had spoken, unleashing a torrent of grief and rage that would forever change the way the world viewed SeaWorld. The secrets, the lies, the years of exploitation, they were all exposed, laid bare for everyone to see. Evelyn Hope, the young trainer who had dedicated her life to these magnificent creatures, became a tragic symbol of the ocean's pain, a reminder that the wild can never truly be tamed. And in the wake of her death, the world began to question the ethics of keeping these intelligent, social animals in captivity, forever confined to concrete tanks, far from their natural homes. The cost of entertainment, they realized, was far too high.